Okay. We have to do a vote on that, right, Mayor, before we get started, when we get started?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll take care of it.
Okay. Then to Kevin.
And we're also having a difficulty getting a hold of Councilmember Jeans to get him called into the meeting. So Jimmy is still pursuing that, but we haven't gotten in touch with him yet.
Okay. Is he going to call in, Kevin, or is he actually going to get on Zoom?
He's going to try to get on Zoom, but we can't get a phone call set up for him. We can't get in touch with him.
All right. Can you move Anna over when you get a chance? Thank you.
Someone could let Brian Krause in.
Yeah, Brian needs to come over too. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Okay.
I believe we have a quorum of the council, do we not?
Yes, sir, we do.
All right. All right, with that, I'll call the Snoqualmie City Council meeting to order and ask the city clerk to please take the roll call.
Councilmember Jeans. Councilmember Ross.
Here.
Councilmember Holloway.
Here.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Here.
Councilmember Lassay.
Here.
Councilmember Sundwall is requested to be excused. Councilmember Shepherd. Councilmember Shepherd. And Mayor Larson.
I am here, thank you. May I have a motion to excuse council members Shepherd, Sunwall, and Jeans, knowing Jeans will probably join us in a moment once he can.
So moved. Second.
All right, a motion and a second is stated. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. All right, motion is approved. Council may have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented tonight.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion or questions at this time? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed say nay. All right, motion is approved.
Be damned, the warrant stayed.
Yeah, there's not much else on there, but basically it's all that's on there is minutes. All right, moving on to public hearings, presentations, proclamations, and appointments. At this point, it gives me the pleasure to proclaim March as Resilience Month in the city of Snoqualmie. Washington recognizes the importance of a community conversant in adverse childhood experiences, the effects of ACEs and toxic stress on the developing brain, and how resilience building strategies buffer these predicted negative impacts. And whereas the cumulative effects of such experiences over a lifespan have been ignored or detrimental to individuals, families, and communities, and whereas newest Washington State research suggests that building community resilience by increasing the opportunities for mutual support, hope, help, and healing, and ways to feel safe and connected within all our neighborhoods and community is beneficial. And whereas promoting community engagement to learn more about ACEs, noted as the #1 chronic health epidemic in the nation by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and to learn how to interrupt the impact of ACEs by learning about applying protective factors and resilience through our partners, agencies, schools, and families. Now, therefore, I, Matthew R. Larson, Mayor of the City of Snoqualmie, do hereby proclaim and recognize the importance of the coalition work of the Snoqualmie Valley Community Network, Riverview School District, the Snoqualmie Valley School District, Encompass, Sound Health, Hope Link, Friends of Youth, King County Library, Lambert House, YMCA, CCORS, Crisis Connections, Team Link, Trail Youth, Influence, The Choice, Snoqualmie Fire and Police Departments, the Duval Police Department, Eastside Fire and Rescue, and creating a community of hope and healing, and name March 20, 2021 as Resilience Month in the city of Snoqualmie. Here to accept this tonight. I'm sorry. Who was here to accept it tonight? I forgot. Sorry about that.
That was
Okay,
good.
it's Laura. I'm here.
Oh, Laura's here. Okay. Laura,
Yeah.
did you want to say anything?
I just want to say what an amazing list of organizations coming together to support resilience in the Valley. And thank you to the city of Snoqualmie for your continued commitment to the youth and families and really all of the citizens that live here. So just thank you very much.
All right, very good. Thank you, Laura. Thanks for taking the time to join us tonight.
Absolutely.
All right, it's also kind of a fun proclamation every year that we give on a recognition of the television show Twin Peaks, created by Mark Frost and David Lynch, debuted in 1990 and changed television forever by breaking new ground and inspiring numerous other television shows. And whereas Twin Peaks returned to television again in 2017, challenging viewers anew and garnering awards and critical acclaim, and whereas Twin Peaks captivated television viewers around the world with scenes filmed in Snoqualmie and the Snoqualmie Valley that emphasized the natural beauty and the history of our region, and whereas Twin Peaks has drawn tourists from year-round to Snoqualmie and the Snoqualmie Valley and the greater Seattle area for more than 30 years. And whereas Twin Peaks has placed many Snoqualmie and Snoqualmie Valley locations, landmarks, and businesses into popular culture, not limited to Snoqualmie Falls, Mount Si, Lawley State Park, the Salish Lodge and Spa, the Snoqualmie Lumber Mill, and Dirtfish Rally School, the Centennial Log, Reinig Road, Tweed's Cafe, the Roadhouse Restaurant and Inn, Smoky Joe's Bar and Grill, Mount Si High School, the Reinig Bridge, the Brook Theater, Meadowbrook Bridge, and the Northwest Railway Museum, Snoqualmie Depot. And whereas February 24th is celebrated by Twin Peaks fans worldwide as the day when the character of FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper arrived in the town of Twin Peaks. Now, therefore, I, Matthew R. Larson, Mayor of the City of Snoqualmie, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, February 24th, 2021 to be Twin Peaks Day and invite people everywhere to celebrate by giving yourself a present of donuts, cherry pie, and a damn fine cup of coffee, and planning to come visit our beautiful Snoqualmie Valley soon. So here tonight, we also is joining us, excuse me. Oh, geez, keep fumbling around here. Carl, thank you. Carl, thanks for coming and joining us again this year. If you could, if you want to make any comments or.
Sure. I'd like to thank you, Mayor Larson, and thank Jody, Ms. Warren, for your help again every year. We've done this 4 years now. We get a good social media boost for the city every year. And it's good to, even while people are not able to travel as much right now, it's good to remind them to keep the Snoqualmie and the Snoqualmie Valley in their thoughts for when they're next able to go touring. So thank you for your help. And I look forward that we can hopefully do this in person next year.
Yes, great. Good to see you again, Carl. Thanks again for doing this. All right. I just want to remind anybody that's listening, or just for the record, that there were 2 little pieces of artwork that David Lynch gave to us, hand signed, that we put in the City Hall. It's kind of secured in kind of near the reception desk of the office area to make sure it's like the sign right over Carl's shoulder there kept disappearing. The replica we put, they're popular souvenirs, so we secured those a little more. But if anybody expresses an interest, or Coral, if you know of fans that want to, they can certainly, unfortunately the City Hall's closed right now, but in future reference, just know that if you weren't aware, and we can make arrangements for folks to go in and view those.
Thanks again.
All right, thank you. Take care. All right, with that, we now move on to citizens' comments. We do have a number of citizens here tonight. Just a few ground rules before we begin.
Mayor, point of order.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
We have the appointments first.
Oh, thank you.
And I also would like to point out that Councilmember Shepherd has joined the meeting.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, for the record, if Jody, you could note that. Has Councilmember Jeans been able to join us yet? Don't know that I see him on there. All right, I guess we're still struggling to get Bob into the meeting. Okay. Okay, at this time, I'd like to appoint Donna Cronk to the Arts Commission, position 3, for a term ending January 31st, 2025, and appoint Nicole Hansen to the Arts Commission, position 4, for a term ending January 31st, 2025. May I have a confirmation, Council?
Move to confirm.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to confirm as stated. Is there any discussion regarding any of these appointments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. All right, hearing none. Motion is approved. Thank you. And thank you to those 2 if they're listening in at all. With that, we'll move on to citizens' comments. First, a few ground rules. 1, Snoqualmie citizens have a right to have their elected representatives perform the duties on behalf of the city in an efficient and orderly manner. Therefore, for those who do take the time to attend, their comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Second, please wait to be recognized and state your name and address for the record. You can be recognized by clicking on the in the center of your screen. There should be an icon showing raise hand. If you click on that, you can see already someone's raised a little blue hand that's up there. Direct your comments to the council as a whole and not to individual members in order to protect the privacy rights of employees and protect the members of the public from legal liability. Please note that this is not the appropriate venue to make complaints or accusations about an implied or named city employee or agent. Such oral comments will not be allowed, but can be submitted in writing to the city clerk. Fourth, please note that this is not a time to ask questions of the council, mayor, or staff, or to engage in debate. The council will simply quietly and respectfully listen to your concerns. And lastly, please respect the decorum of these proceedings, as all due respect will be afforded to you. So with that, if folks could kind of follow the lead of Ms. Lux, I can see that she has her hand raised. Ms. Lux, we'll start with you. We'll turn on your microphone in just a moment. You can see that there's a timer here. It's similar to the one that used to be at City Hall. You have 3 minutes to speak at the 30-second interval. It'll go to yellow at 30 seconds and 15 seconds, and then ask that you stop your comments when the clock has expired. So with that, I think your microphone is on. Ms. Lux, go ahead.
Okay, well, good evening, and I would like to say hello to everybody and talk about how fitting this is that we are recognizing this as the Twin Peaks month and the month that the FBI visited Snoqualmie, because that's not only something in the movies. The FBI has now twice visited the city of Snoqualmie to take in people from the city of Snoqualmie, unfortunately. And unfortunately, actions that are going on within the city of Snoqualmie have raised the DOJ's attention recently as well. And the investigation within the city of Snoqualmie that has been raised to the DOJ's attention has perhaps caused the censorship of council member Shepard. I think that it's very important to raise to the council the fact that our police department needs to obtain a violence against women grant. This is a grant that's available through the Department of Justice that we're not taking advantage of. And our current crime statistics that have been reported to the FBI and to the media are in fact inaccurate. Our police detectives lack proper training, which is evident through PRRs. And we have countless crimes against women and children that are being poorly handled currently by our police department. We could fill up City Hall if it were open right now with women and children that have had crimes committed against them, which have been improperly handled by this police department. And to be specific, we had a situation in the last couple of weeks where 2 young children were stalked by a gentleman in the downtown area, right across from the new high school. These 2 young children were circled by a car that was hot rodding around them, making lewd, sexual, inappropriate comments. And the girls ran to one of their homes. When they got to the home, the girls were very upset, crying, and their parents were there. And this car continued circling around the residence. And one of the parents got into the car and followed after this gentleman and got his license plate number and called the Snoqualmie police, who did respond to the call. The Snoqualmie police gave a very unsatisfactory response to this, and their reasoning for why an arrest was not made of the man who basically gave a confession is unacceptable. This is why our crime rates are so unrepresentatively low and inaccurate. And as the FBI warns, the crime statistics alone from the FBI are never what's to be posted. Their police department is to use input from the community as well as a variety of other resources, and is never to rely on the FBI crime statistics alone. The FBI site also does state that they're often misused by townships, by the Chamber of Commerce, to sell homes. That's right on the DOJ's website. And that is a major concern for all of the women and the children in this valley that are being improperly handled. There's a DOJ situation right now in a case that's about ready to be reopened due to a poorly trained detective in Snoqualmie and perhaps some misconduct. We will look forward to the FBI returning to the city of Snoqualmie.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Lux, thank you for your comments. All right, is there any other person, we notice we have several members of the public here tonight. Is there any other member that would like to comment at this time on anything that's not on the agenda? Again, you can find the opportunity, if you'd like to speak, to hit the raise hand icon in the center of the bottom of your screen. Going once, going twice. All right, seeing no one else raise their hand, we will return to the regular meeting and move on to the consent agenda. All items listed below being acted by one motion. Action items include minutes for the regular city council meeting of February 8th, 2021. Excuse me. Approvals also include approval of warrants submitted by Director Hamoud dated February 18th, 2021. May I have a, excuse me, I have a motion in a second, council.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent as stated. Is there any questions or discussion? Or is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this, on the consent agenda at this time? Seeing no one put their hand up, is there any questions or comments from the council members? Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes, I'm not going to be approving the warrants because I haven't had a chance to see them.
All right, is that a request to remove them because otherwise you'll be voting no on both the minutes and the warrants?
I would be voting remove them, I guess. I was here 2 minutes late, so I don't know if I missed the window of opportunity to remove them.
All right, thank you. I'll pull that off then. Any
Okay.
other questions or comments at this time? All right, seeing none. With the warrants removed, council, or any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, oops.
So Mayor,
Councilmember,
point of order.
Councilmember Say, go ahead.
The warrants were read in as part of the consent agenda. I do not believe they can be removed without a motion and a second, and then a vote of the council to remove them at that point.
Okay, sustained. So I'll ask for a motion to remove.
I move to remove the warrants from the consent agenda.
All right, do I have a second, council? All right, hearing no second, the motion dies for lack of a second. So back to the original motion with the consent agenda, which includes the minutes and approval of warrants. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right?
Those opposed say nay.
No.
All right, motion passes 6-1 or 5-1. I don't believe Councilmember Jeans has joined us yet. With that, we move on to ordinances. Community Development Committee Agenda Bill 21011, ordinance amending chapters 15.04A and 15.04B of the Snoqualmie Municipal Code to adopt by reference the 2018 editions of certain international and uniform codes and providing for severability and an effective date. This is for introduction tonight and will be ready for action on the 8th of March. So if you could just read the, or introduce the ordinance, we'll just read the summary statement, please.
Okay. The Washington State Building Code is comprised of various different international and uniform promulgated by the International Code Council. The Washington State Building Code Council amends and adopts the State Building Code on a 3-year cycle, and by statute, the State Building Code is required to be enforced in every city and county within the state, subject to any allowable locally adopted amendments. In 2020, the State Building Code adopted the 2018 International Codes with a 2021 effective date. The City of Snoqualmie previously adopted the 2015 International Codes as set forth in Snoqualmie Municipal Code Chapter 15.04A and Chapter 15.04B regulates the administration thereof. The proposed ordinance will amend Snoqualmie Municipal Code Chapters 15.04A and 15.04B to adopt by reference the 2018 International Codes as adopted and amended by the State Building Code Council. With the exception of technical corrections, no local amendments are included in this ordinance. And this is the first reading.
Great, thank you. Again, this is only for introduction tonight. However, this time we'd like to comment on this part of the council.
Can I make a comment from the committee?
Sure, if the chair wants to make some comments, then again, I'll throw it back to the members of the public first.
Right, okay. So as stated, this is just updating by reference 2018 international codes, and also it updates the fee amounts that the city charges for various permits. So the Community Development Committee approved moving this Virginia bill forward to the full council for approval. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Ross. Again, are there any members of the public that would like to comment as item part of possible future action? All right, I don't see any hands going up, so Councilmember Lissay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. As Councilmember Ross mentioned, the committee moved this forward to council. However, during committee discussions, there was some talk of suspending council rules and procedures and allowing this ordinance to be approved on its first reading. The reason for that is that we are currently non-compliant with the state code for the codes that have been enacted by the state and therefore acted on locally. And also we have amended the fees for permitting to be more reflective of 2021 fees as opposed to 2014 fees. So at this time, I would like to make a motion and move to suspend council rules and procedure and move Agenda Bill AB 21-011 forward on first reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move the agenda bill forward as stated by Councilmember Lissay. Is there any question?
Mr. Mayor, just a point of clarification, is the motion to then adopt the ordinance on first and final reading?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
So the motion is to suspend council rules and procedures and approve and adopt on first reading. So first we have to approve that, and then we can vote on it on first reading.
Yeah. All right. Hearing no other comments, questions, or concerns. Oh, Councilor Mayhew, go ahead.
Yeah, so I appreciate Councilor Rose's pointing out the non-compliance, and that is an issue. I think I generally am very reluctant to waive a second reading. I think unless it's truly an emergency in the sense that something might happen in the next 2 weeks or fail to happen that's would have significant negative impact, I think I'm very reluctant to do that. So I'm not in favor of waiving a second reading in this case, although I understand, and Councilmember Lissay pointed out at committee that that would leave us a 2-week period where there's confusion and people applying for permits might be confused and might get approved or apply for things with the wrong or with old code sections. Notwithstanding that, I don't see that as an emergency, so I'm not in favor of this, of doing it in one motion or in one reading, rather.
Any other comments or discussion at this time? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
No.
No,
I think I heard 3 nays. I heard Holloway, Mayhew, and Shepherd nay. Was there anyone else?
Jeans.
And you, Bob, you were a nay?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion does not pass. Going back to the original introduction now at this point for future action, any other comments or questions on the agenda bill? Hearing none, we'll move on to Finance Administration Committee. Agenda Bill 21015, ordinance relating to City Council review and determination on claims, amending section 3.85.050 of the Snoqualmie Municipal Code and providing for severability and effective date. Again, this is only for introduction tonight and will be available up for possible future action on the 8th of March.
The Finance Administration Council, do I read the summary statement, correct, Mayor?
Yes, sir, please.
The Finance and Administration Council Committee desires to further clarify the process for review of documentation supporting claims paid in order to ensure more efficient review and determination on claims.
All right, thank you. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to possible future action? And again, those that are attending, if you'd like to speak, simply click on the icon in the center of the bottom of your screen that shows a hand or raise hand icon. All right, seeing no one raise their hand, we will come back to the council for further discussion. Again, any questions or discussion prior to possible future action? Councilor Mayhew, let's start with you as the chair, and then we'll go to Councilor Holloway.
At the F&A committee, the discussion was that similar to the discussion we had about the last ordinance, there was discussion about whether this was an item that needed to move forward with an emergency approach and adopt in first reading. And in fact, the ordinance that was included in the package sent to you, the agenda package, calls for it to be adopted in a single reading. That is not the intent of the committee. And so I'd like to make a motion to amend section 2 by deleting the existing language and substituting our standard effective date language, which is this ordinance shall be effective 5 days after passage and publication as provided by law.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to amend as stated by Councilmember Mayhew. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Councilmember Mayhew, go ahead and speak to your amendment, and then Councilmember Holloway, you've been patiently waiting.
Yeah, so I will just say really the same argument that I made on the prior ordinance, which is I don't see an emergency in the next 2 weeks. We have a review that we've been following for almost a year now, well, close to a year now, a review process in which because of the COVID emergency, the F&A committee members are looking at the listing and the details. This process continues to work well. So waiting an additional 2 weeks for our normal ordinance process is, I think, appropriate in this case.
Thank you. Councilmember Holloway.
So I guess, City Attorney, have a question. The existing ordinance specifies distribution to the F&A committee. Does it specifically prohibit distribution to other council members?
We have Assistant City Attorney Anna Astrachan who prepared the draft. I think she's on the call. I'm going to defer the question to her if I can.
Okay. And my real question is, informally, even though we're not adopting this at this time, informally, can we act that way for the 2 weeks coming and go ahead and distribute to council the summary statements on the warrants prior to the adoption of the ordinance?
Are those documents currently being prepared and delivered by the finance director?
Yes, to the to members of the F&A committee.
I want to try to put the existing language in front of me. And Anna, please chime in if you have a thought in answer to Councilmember Holloway's question.
Well, I believe until the changes take place, the existence way of doing things will continue for the next week until these changes are adopted.
Agreed. And distribution to the F&A committee for review and what will continue. My question is, I do not believe the wordage prohibits distribution to other council members as a courtesy. And could we do that in the interim 2 weeks before adoption of this agenda bill?
You are correct. The language, even as either under the existing or proposed, does not prohibit the F&A committee from distributing or making documents available as it sees fit. It just provides for this process to be routed solely through the committee.
So if the F&A chair will allow, I would like to make an advisory motion to staff that we do such distribution for the review coming up next week. Given that the expectation is we as council will behave as the future code dictates. Okay, so don't go post this on the bulletin board down at the post office. Not appropriate.
I think we might have a dinosaur egg on the table or a baby advice from, without having to do a motion in a second. Councilmember Holloway, would be sufficient if the administration just said we're out of courtesy, we'll simply do that.
Okay.
If there's no objection from the other council members. All right. Or is there any objection from staff or from Robert?
There's no objection from me. I mean, we're happy to do it. I guess the only question I have is if we do have, say we have 100 questions coming in, are those questions still being directed to FNA members?
Yes.
Or is staff expected to answer those questions?
Questions go to FNA and are
Okay.
dispositioned out of there. That is the
Got it.
process. Was before and it will be after.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, we're back to the amended, a motion for amendment from Councilmember Mayhew.
Oh.
Any other questions or comments on that? Councilmember Lassay, Councilmember Ross.
Yeah, I believe this also applies to the amendment, but I'll go ahead and say it, and if we can decide later. My question was very similar to with the edits and wording of when, if council members are going to receive the packet 48 hours ahead of time, and FNA committee is going to then review those during FNA, those questions, or are they going to disseminate in advance? And then also it's a little unclear then how, yeah, I guess it goes to the same thing you'd said. How many questions, how long is that gonna, could that potentially delay the moving of claims and warrants to where there may be items that get postponed that need to be moved forward? I guess that applied not to the baby dinosaur, to the main dinosaur. That was a Tyrannosaurus Rex question.
Councilmember Ross.
I wanted to go back to what Councilmember Holloway had suggested with sending it out early before the ordinance is even approved. And if we're stating that the wording is already there, that we can send it out, then why are we doing the ordinance? So I don't think we should send it out before the ordinance is approved. So I think we could have more discussion about the process at FNA at the next meeting, so we can figure out what we're going to do.
We're happy to do whatever the majority of the council.
Chair, I'm back to an advisory motion. I would like the council to vote on the advisory motion to have the distribution done next week.
I'm not sure. Is that a motion to advise? What's an advisory motion?
It doesn't necessarily directly pertain to the agenda bill in hand, but is merely an advisory to staff that we either do or do not want to do this.
Right, but it's kind of a minor approval of the motion on the table. I'll kick it to Bob Sturbinick for comment. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, Mayor, I was going to suggest that the advisory motion seems out of order, as it's not germane to the motion that's on the table, which the council's to debate.
Get the baby dinosaur out of the way, we can come back.
Right, and then when you have the primary motion back in front of you, the substance of it could be then amended.
Yeah, that makes more sense, right? Because that seems like it relates directly to the primary motion.
Agreed. I withdraw.
Either you're going to go this direction or not, and if there isn't support to go to the direction to approve the ordinance, then why are we doing an interim process to that same effect? I think was her point. So again, so Councilmember Holloway, without looking for a second, are you inclined to just pull that back?
I withdraw at this time and return to the baby dinosaur motion to revise the agenda.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Shepherd.
I just wanted to add that many cities have these things posted on their city's website for the public to see.
All right, Robert, you have your hand up. Did you just forget it up, or you want to add something else?
He's looking for a button.
Go ahead, Councilmember Mayhew.
Yes, I just wanted to respond to the question from Councilmember Lassay. The committee, the FNA committee, prior to the COVID emergency, was routinely dealing with sometimes a fairly large number of claims that were being questioned by one or another council member, and worked out a process with administration to get through those. So, there's no one answer to how each of those was dealt with. Sometimes the F&A committee would sort of look at something and realize that it really wasn't a question about approving something, it was more informational, and try to work with the council member to get that informational request answered in a manner that didn't hold up approval of warrants and didn't unduly burden staff. And so we've been working at this for quite some time in F&A committee with reasonably good success, I think. So the plan would be that now the one difference in how this proposal is laid out as compared to what was happening before is that the initial questioning would go straight to administration. In this proposal, all questions from council members will go initially to the F&A committee. And the reason for that is we have much less staff capacity, with staff not being able to be in City Hall except on a very limited basis due to COVID. So the plan would be, though, to have the F&A committee continue to manage questions and work with administration to keep the workload reasonable and to hopefully answer questions by the time of the F&A committee. But if not, then certainly during the intervening period before the council meeting at which we'd need to approve them. So long story short, we've been able to do this in the past, and the F&A committee feels like we can absolutely handle this going forward, with that caveat that we do need to protect limited staff resources during the emergency. And so that tweak is everything will go through the F&A committee, but in essence, it always has before anyway. So as a practical matter, that's what was happening.
Councilor Lissay.
Appreciate the response, and I trust in my F&A committee members will get through this. I only want to point out that 48 hours, council members submitting 48 hours prior to the F&A meeting is 6:30 p.m. on Sunday. I would stress to the committee and your and subsequently City of Snoqualmie staff that anything received after that time is not considered. If we're going to do 48 hours, we need to stick to 48 hours. It's not in your best interest to be chasing things.
Well,
Councilor Holloway.
So in the past, we have managed things that came in less than that 48 hours. So I agree that if individuals choose to weaponize this, the F&A committee may draw a line and say anything within 48 hours is not considered, but it can be courtesy of the F&A committee to go ahead and consider them if the load is appropriate and the agenda is appropriate. Again, if it is weaponized, the F&A committee will come back and ask that this be changed again. So it's a future issue, not germane for tonight.
Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, and I would just add to that the administration has been very supportive of answering questions that a council member has that they need in order to determine whether they're going to vote for or against approving a claim. They've just been fantastic on this. We have to be very mindful of their limited resources in normal times, and especially during COVID times. But they really are fantastic. Now, where the questions tend to be more informational, hey, why do we use contractors to do this instead of in-house employees? Well, that's not really a question that has to do with approving a particular claim. So those kind of questions, sometimes need more time, and usually council members are quite happy to, as long as they get an answer to those, for that to take a little more time. So the reality is that this really works. There's a lot of ways it could fail to work. I think as Councilmember Holloway pointed out, the sort of notion of weaponizing questions, would be a manner of using these questions in a way to sort of interfere as opposed to just try to move through a reasonable process. But really, I would tell you, I'm quite confident that the normal routine will be well supported by administration, and will, anything that's reasonable, they really do a fantastic job of helping us with. So I think the F&A committee will make sure it doesn't get misused, but I think the whole process will work very well.
I would only add I appreciate the comments of Councilmember Lassay about adhering to the deadline or policy, because although all your instincts might tell you you want to provide a courtesy, without a clear outlined policy or criteria to determine when someone's behavior or something has been weaponized or not, that's subject to a lot of arbitrary and subjective sort of interpretation, or open yourselves to being accused of being playing favorites. So I think Councilmember Lassay makes a good point to say, you know, define a line or a deadline or an outline, a procedure where no one questions the objectivity of the process, and when something can be taken into account or not. Okay. Any other questions, comments, discussions on this item, Council? All right. I believe we're still on the baby dinosaur on the amendment. So with no further discussion, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. All right, motion passes. Now we're back to the original motion.
Wait a minute, Chair, Catherine Ross, you're on mute.
I was on mute. What was, okay, I'm lost. What is the amendment? What did we just vote on?
Councilmember Mayhew, can you restate, please?
Yes, it was a motion to not have this be passed by emergency ordinance and effective tonight, but rather to go through the normal process, be a first read tonight, and come back for action in 2 weeks.
Right. Okay.
And I'm sorry, I should clarify, we're not back to an original motion. We're back to the original subject matter that was put on the floor for discussion. I'm sorry, I might have confused this. So back to the agenda bill, or 015, which is related to this amendments to the claims and warrants process, which will be ready for action on the 8th. Any further comments and discussions on this item? Councilmember Holland.
I guess I'm back. Now I'm back. Now the baby's out of the way. I'm back to, I'd like an advisory vote of the council whether or not to do distribution for this week coming up to non-F&A council members.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion, a second, is stated by Councilmember Holloway. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Mr. Mayor, my hand is raised.
Chair, there are hands.
There's several of us with hands.
Yeah, I thought, Councilmember Lassay, go ahead.
I'm also in support, as Councilmember Ross had mentioned, that if we're going to follow the dotted line, we're going to not have it distributed this week. Let's get it through committee. Let's get it through council. Once the ordinance is approved and enacted 5 days later, then we can follow the distribution. Otherwise, stick with the plan.
Point of order, the existing ordinance does not prohibit courtesy distribution to other council members.
That's fine. My point is I don't think we should change what we've been doing until the ordinance is passed.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Yeah, I'd like to raise a point of order in that I don't understand. I understand what Councilmember Holloway is trying to do. I don't understand his particular motion in the context of what we're looking at here. I wonder if what he intends. In other words, wouldn't he need to be either changing the motion that's here,
yeah,
or making some amendment to the motion? But he's doing neither. And so my point of order is, shouldn't he, to accomplish what he's trying to do, instead wait for this motion to be voted on and bring a separate main motion asking for that distribution?
Well, again, there is no motion on the table. There's simply a subject matter that was brought. There's a first reading of an ordinance that was introduced. As part of the discussion, he's made a motion to see if we can't just go ahead and implement this process before it's finally approved in the second reading.
Now I understand. Thank you very much.
He's assuming broad support for this, and assuming future majority support. He's saying, we can do the second reading, but just out of a courtesy, can we go ahead and start it now? That's the question advisory waiting before the council.
And again, the existing ordinance does not prohibit that distribution.
Yeah. Councilmember Lassay's argument was that, and Councilmember Ross, was that probably not good practice to start putting into practice a policy before the full council is actually formally approved it. So. Any other comments or questions at this time? All right, all those in favor of the advisory motion say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the nays have it, so the advisory motion was not approved. All right, any other comments and questions on this, the introduction of this ordinance? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to reports. Works and Public Works Committee, any report? I believe the chair is out of town, so if other members of the committee could, any report?
No report.
All right, Community Development Committee, any report?
Well, can I make a comment during that though?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I just a shout out and thank you to Parks and Public Works, the city staff, and Joan Plago for communications during the snowstorm. So I think you guys did an excellent job in well-coordinated efforts and getting everything plowed and removing trees. We had trees down our street that one fell on the car and other things. So they just did an excellent job. So thank you to the city staff.
Here, here. Here.
Thank you, Councilor Ross. I know that will go far with the staff. We appreciate the comment, recognition. All right, Community Development Committee, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I do have a report.
Go ahead.
So it's just a reminder of the special workshop that is this Wednesday from 6 to 8 on doing a SWOT analysis regarding future development concepts. And I did send out some information, some documents for you to review last week. So look forward to seeing everyone Wednesday night. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Finance Administration Committee report. Councilmember Mayhew, you're muted.
No report.
All right, Public Safety Committee Agenda Bill 21014, interlocal agreement between the City of Snoqualmie Police Department and Independent Force Investigation Team of King County. Councilmember Jeans, if you could read that.
Agenda bill seeks the city council approval to enter into interlocal agreement, ILA, for the formation of an independent force investigation for law enforcement, deadly use of force investigations.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Was there a motion or did you read the summary statement?
I think this is the first reading, so.
No, this is a resolution, so this is the first and only reading. It'll be ready for action.
So I'm looking for a second.
A second.
Okay.
No motion was read. We need to have the motion read.
Yeah, Councilor Jeans, I think you might have read the summary statement. Did you read the motion, or can you find the motion on there? Read the motion.
Move to approve the interlocal agreement between the Snoqualmie Police Department and the Independent Force Investigation Team of King County and allow the mayor to sign.
Do I have a second, Council?
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 21014 as stated by Councilmember Jeans. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action, possible action? And again, members of the public, you can raise your hand by using the icon in the center of the bottom of your screen. See no one raised their hand. Council, any questions or comments? Councilmember Jeans, go ahead.
This is an infinitely sensible establishment of a force backed by the King County and all of the east side cities, essentially all of law enforcement on the east side. It allows for some efficiency and some good concentrated kind of investigation that a small city like Snoqualmie could not do as well as other cities. It's a good idea.
Thank you. Councilmember Mayhew.
So I'm, whoops, that's the wrong button. I'm completely in favor of this. I do have a question for either the committee chair or perhaps for administration. The one concern I have with this is in the very short term, largely probably this year during the COVID emergency, during which time we're down police officers, we're not at full force, and we have a hiring freeze on. And because of the budget limitations that we're struggling with, that's likely to be a severe limitation throughout the year. And so I'm just hesitant about taking on additional responsibilities while that's the case. So I had hoped that there might be some thought given to joining this, but maybe restricting our involvement, our commitment of resources to this, maybe delaying that as much as we can for about a year to try and keep the demands on our police department down when they're short-staffed. Just curious for, whether the committee discussed that at all, or whether there's any sort of comment from administration on that.
We did not discuss that, although it seemed to me the passage of this allows for a better use of the police's time in the event that fatality, murder occurred. And so I'd like to have Chief Phipps to comment also.
Yeah, Perry, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, thank you for allowing me time to address that issue. As I said in my staff report, the issue of overtime can be mitigated by flexing of the shift, or actually that would be the detective's work day if they were actually called to assist in an agency outside our jurisdiction who had a use of force. This has really been mandated by, if you recall, I-940 a couple of years ago, mandated that there would be an independent investigative team to investigate uses of force, deadly uses of force by law enforcement. And so this is really a response to that requirement that was approved by the legislature. If we by chance did not agree to go in with this ILA, then if we did have a use of force, we would not have any avenue to have an independent investigative team come and respond to assist us in that use of force. It would really put us in a situation where we would have to address the investigation, but we would really not to have the resources to do that. And if you recall, part of the discussion that we had is we've been working on this for several months. Police chiefs and the sheriff as well have been talking about what was the scope, and to address Councilmember Mayhew's issue about overburdening us. Part of it was, are we going to respond to other critical incidents? And there was a limited amount of chiefs that did talk about that we needed to just have lethal force response with this investigative team, because if we had a larger scope, it really would become a full-time job. And that's what we wanted to mitigate. So this is the agreed upon ILA. It's been approved by several of the agencies already, including Bellevue and Issaquah. And it's been worked on for at least probably a year overall to get to the point where we're at right now.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Councilmember Holloway and Councilmember Shepherd.
First, I'd like to reflect that I disagree with some of the public comments that were made prior and discount individuals who take standing for organizations they are not members of nor should speak for. Having said that, I see these things as ways for us as a small force to get access to services which we could not support ourselves. If we need a helicopter, we could go get one. But could we fund a helicopter? No. Okay, this is again, it's something along those lines. It would be inappropriate for us to fund this, as it would be underutilized, and we can, through our relationship, make access to those services on a broader community. So I'm in support of this.
Thank you, Councilmember Shepherd.
So I'm in support of this, but a couple of questions I have is if this is going to have a citizen contingent to it. And I was wondering, when a citizen is, and that there's training involved, and I don't know whether we are going to have to train just a small part of our force, or is everyone already trained to meet the needs or the minimum requirements for this ILA? As far as the citizen engagement and their training and what their background checks and so forth, will they be looking at cases that happen to our agency, or will they be only looking at other agency cases? That was not clear to me.
Sure, I can answer both those questions, Councilmember Shepherd. The first one is a training. We currently have 2 of our detectives that have gone to the initial training on use of force, which is identified by the committee of the ILA. And so through the process, they're going to have certain requirements before they can become a team member. And we're in the process of doing that right now. Each agency has to have a minimum of 1, preferably 2 members on the team that can respond if needed. We've decided that we would have 2. And as far as the citizen input, there is a requirement to have a citizen as part of this team. It's part of the transparent need for these type of investigations. So you have somebody that's not in law enforcement that can look at it objectively from a citizen's point of view and make sure and see that the use of force is appropriate under the circumstances and have input on how the investigation goes as well.
So I'm confident that this will probably cost the city some money, but I do believe that it's something that would really benefit our city. And I think like council member, the other council member said, they're going to have resources that we just don't have access to. So I think it's going to be pros and cons, but I think it'll be a net positive to work with an interlocal agency on these things.
All right, thank you. I struggle to remember Councilmember Holloway myself. Any other questions or comments, Council? All right, so voting on the main motion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. All right, motion is approved unanimously.
No further report.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Bob.
No further report.
You do have a discussion item on face coverings in public that you wanted to follow up on, I think.
Right.
Okay. Joan, do you have anything you want to show tonight, or?
Sorry. No, I don't have anything, but Nicole, do you have something to share? We did have I should share that we did have a flyer made for the merchant's windows. Had 2 different versions and they can choose one or the other. Nicole has the sample. Nicole, can you share that?
Are we to this now, or is that later in the program?
It's under Public Safety Committee.
Well,
am I able to show my screen?
You have to hit the share button and pick the screen that has the graphic open.
So, okay, so find the graphic first. Boy, I'm really showing my technical abilities to all right now, aren't I?
Well, perhaps it's not necessary if the council or the chair of the committee doesn't care to discuss it this time. We just wanted to make sure we were following up on some of the desire to maybe play some role as this community. Councilmember Lassay had brought up that issue and asked the Public Safety Committee to take issue with it. So,
well, we are aware internally of the discussion last week and the concern. So we created some messaging that we just actually finalized this afternoon that is specific to Snoqualmie. The branding is, Joan, remind me, is it stay safe Snoqualmie, wear a mask?
It says safe in Snoqualmie.
Safe in Snoqualmie, wear a mask. So it is bright, it is clear, it is concise. It is specific to our community. It's not messaging that's been provided by the county. And so we've created this. And like I said, we just finalized it this afternoon, and we will work with the business community to provide them the necessary graphics. If they have troubles printing them, we're happy to print them and deliver it to all of the businesses. But what we're hopeful is that there'll be a continuity through the community of messaging. It's iconic, or it's the use of icons, which also addresses the issue of whether people, especially particularly our visitors, do they speak the language, so they can just look at the photo and see that here in Snoqualmie, we do require masks.
okay. Hang on, I was trying to.
Are you trying to find it, Mayor, in your email?
I have it open. I'm just, now I got to figure out how to, if I can share the screen, that would be good. Yeah, let me do that.
I still think we're a little bit cart before the horse, because the council has not had our discussion yet about this matter of citizens wearing masks and the pressure it puts on businesses. No.
Well, the messaging doesn't say that it's required. We're just saying wear a mask, safe in Snoqualmie, just modeling through the use of the icons, safe behavior.
Good idea. Very, very well done.
Thank you. I designed it myself, just kidding.
This item was added to my notes on the agenda, so I assume it was the wishes of the Public Safety Committee to discuss this item, or at least bring it back for discussion or queue it up. So I'll defer to you, Chair of the committee, if you want to take any further or not.
I think we still have committees that are we to literally to this point in the agenda, bringing this matter up?
It's pretty much one of the final items. There's nothing but a few discussion items left on the agenda. Is there something?
It is on the agenda at this location. As
Okay,
published.
let me cue it up if I may.
Go ahead, Councilor Jean.
Councilmember Matt Lasay suggested to the Public Safety Committee that we give some thought to the matter of what is happening in businesses, including restaurants and grocery stores, etc. The people who enter without masks, and when asked to put masks on, they don't put them on, and it puts some pressure upon the merchants. The matter of an ordinance was suggested. The council committee considered that, and the council committee thought that an ordinance would not be appropriate. And we did make some suggestions, and we wanted to bring those suggestions to the full council to have them consider them. So first suggestion is not an ordinance. The two is some uniform signs throughout the city that can be used by the merchants. In a brief tour around the city, I see that it runs the gamut what merchants do, anywhere from nothing at all to 2 or 3 signs in their store that says wear masks. Some of them likely designed by the health department, some of them likely designed by an attorney. So it's too much wording, it's too much information, and people will likely not look at it. And this sign that would be offered to the citizen, to the merchants, is just what we would want to have. Something that doesn't have a lot of wording, has an illustration, is colorful, and I applaud the staff for what they have already done for our consideration, and perhaps we should encourage them to go further or produce what this is. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Councilor Jean. Any other questions, comments, discussion on this item?
I have my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilor Shiver.
Yeah, so this was brought up during our meeting at the last Public Safety Committee meeting, and I was looking up the rules. The state has rules regarding whether somebody is wearing a face mask or not. And of course, enforcing it probably is going to be not easy. But there's RCWs and WAC having to do with, the consequences of not wearing face covering. And then there's also regulations for businesses not trying to enforce it. And then the business can reach out to our police and ask for support on helping with that. And of course, anytime you try to come in contact to do an enforcement, then you're exposing yourself to the problem. And so I think that if we want to know whether there's rules out there are rules out there, for us to identify with as far as what the laws are, if anybody wants to challenge it. The one thing though that I thought was a good point that I'd heard before, but I'd forgotten, is that if someone comes to a store, say a grocery store, and they cannot or won't wear a mask, the option for the business is to offer a service of tell us what you want us to, the order that you'd like us to fulfill, and we'll bring it to your car. I think that would be nice in terms of signage, if, and in fact, you've got it on your sign here. So anyway, I thought it was nice to know that we don't have to put together any kind of municipal code. These rules are already there. And I just wanted to make sure that we know that they're there. And I would like to know, though, as far as enforcement, it would be nice to know, have we had a difficult situation and how was it handled?
Harry, I think that's questions for you. Perhaps have we had many incidences of you having officers having to respond to encourage wearing masks or complying with the COVID orders?
I do not have that data about how many times we have responded to people that are refusing to wear a mask in a business. And I can surely get that to you.
Well, I don't know if anyone's looking for data, but I assume it's been more than zero.
Yes, I do recall at least 2 occasions we responded to businesses regarding a disturbance that was caused because they were not complying with the requirement to wear a mask, and the business did not want them in the business, and therefore we responded to basically have them leave the business.
And they were refusing to leave, I assume, too.
Yes, one with the owner of the business or the business itself, but once we responded, they complied.
Councilor Shepherd, does that answer your question, or did you want the chief to bring back more data?
No, I just I really wanted us to have a conversation about this in a public meeting, just to let people know that this is where our elected officials stand on wearing masks. I think it's important for all of us to demonstrate that we do believe in masks and we wear them when we're in public.
Okay, and as I committed to the committee after this last discussion, the very next morning was the weekly Zoom chamber call, which upwards of 25 to 35 members attend, and it was well received. Kelly Coughlin indicated support to coordinate and work with us to distribute some sort of a simple messaging, proprietary local messaging that might get more attention. Nicole also asked all the proprietors to spread the word that, hey, take an outsider's view of your front door and clear up the clutter so it's not 15 different flyers and signs all over your door. So some measures, and I say well received because the store owners recognize that they're not going to be successful unless people are following these protocols and making it safe for others to feel safe coming back to their stores and shopping at their stores or the restaurants. So it's all good. Councilor Jeans, anything else you want to add to this issue?
Actually, no, I've seen more of what I think is the recommendation or what the information people have put together. But that's certainly more information that I had in mind, because the less you have, the more they will read it. If you have all kinds of stuff, including, well, why stop there? I mean, why not indicate all the laws and give the citations? And so I'm that's the one I want, which is just 6 words. That's super to my mind. But maybe we should let the staff work a little more on it, and let's decide which sign we want to recommend that the city produce for businesses who want such a thing.
Yeah.
I think the idea of everyone using the same sign is a more powerful message than a multitude of signs or a sign that has a lot of information.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be either or. I think the staff was conceiving that you could use this at the front door, and then maybe ones with more detail by the cash register where people are lingering for several minutes waiting to get the cash register. So,
okay,
which is where some of the altercations seem to particularly take places when people are gathering to purchase their items and waiting in line close to others, and they are refusing to wear their masks. So. Nicole or Joan, did you want to add anything else to that before we move on?
I want to add that we will be doing a messaging campaign via the city's media channels, and then outreach to the businesses and assistance with the chamber. So it's going to take some time for us to canvass the city, but our hope and our desire is that this will be the message. It'll be the continuity that you see in Snoqualmie.
Thanks, Nicole.
Councilman Lasay.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to just quickly say I'm really pleased at how me witnessing an altercation in a store grew into just communicating with a few council members and staff and the mayor, and everybody understood the intent, which was to give support to our businesses to help them through this time when people may not want to comply, which was really what I was getting at. It wasn't necessarily an ordinance, but although that's the way it came across in the initial discussion. But the mayor, you ran with it and contacted the chamber. Staff ran with it to create some graphics. Councilmember Jeans, I appreciate you putting it onto the agenda last minute to have the discussion. All council members for getting involved. I think what this is really about is supporting our businesses when it's a difficult time. It's hard. It's hard to tell somebody that's in your business and your establishment, which is your livelihood, that they have to do something that you clearly don't want to do if you're not wearing a mask. And so this is a way, I think, for everyone to get behind supporting our businesses and encouraging them to put these signs up and to let folks know when they walk in the door very clearly, just please wear a mask. That's all.
Yeah. Good.
All right, thank you. Councilor Shepherd.
Yeah, can we show the poster once again?
Which one? The simplified?
The simple one. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, so if there's nothing else about that item, we will move on to Committee of the Whole. And we have council. This is an opportunity. This is a new item that's been added. It will be an ongoing item at every council meeting, just to provide an opportunity for any liaisons. You're not compelled to report if you don't have anything to report on, but if you are a liaison to any community group or organization and you would like to just give a report at this time, this would be a great time to do it. Councilman Lasay.
Yes, thank you. I'm reporting on the Parks and Events Commission, which is probably the most difficult commission to be on right now because there are no parks and events. Well, there's parks, of course, but there are no events. It's also suffered through departures and not having quorums and not having enough participants. And now they've gotten that back in line. So they do have a quorum at meetings. And it was really great to have a meeting this last week where got some update on what events are being put forth. Nicole Weeby is doing a fantastic job just trying to figure everything out. What did come out of that meeting was two things I just want to report to council. One is a discussion about parks fees, and just going forward with that. I don't want to get too much detail because it's really just in the discussion point by the commission that they will make a recommendation at some point. But there is some discussion around park fees and reserving parks, reserving fields and other parts of the parks. The other part was something that came up that I think might be of interest to council, which is regarding the software that we use. And what was explained to me and Nicole, or either you or I don't know if I see not Joan Pliego, but the other Joan on the call. But anyway, but the point is there's some challenge for the department to receive reservations online and post reservations online. Thanks, Brian, for popping up there. And then also to receive, if we do go and people reserve things, to do any sort of credit card activities online through our online software. And so I just wanted to point out that that's something that's a challenge to the Parks and Public Works to receive any of that sort of information. And maybe Brian, if you want to touch on that briefly in a little more detail and much more highly technical and scientific than I ever would.
Yeah, sure. the gist of it is we don't have recreation programming software, and through the new ERP software, we're hoping that we'll have the ability to take credit cards and be able to manage credit card charges for reservations and engagement in recreational activities through some sort of portal. Right now, it's an all manual process. It's very difficult to give refunds and that kind of thing. And the gist of it is we've never really resolved some of those challenges over the years, and we started to prior to our last IT director leaving, but we we didn't resolve that, and then COVID hit, so that sort of been put on the back burner. It's something that could resolve a lot of efficiency challenges we have, and certainly with the ability to take credit cards and issue refunds would be improved greatly. Also, tracking and then being able to be transparent with field reservations would also be really helpful through some sort of recreational software, which we don't have. And we've been looking into various options for that over the last couple of years, but it's just fallen in priority. But it's something like that we'd like to get on in the future, because there are some efficiencies that will be gained if we can do so.
Thanks, Brian. And so that's pretty much the report for Parks and.
Thank you. Councilmember Jeans.
There's a couple of committees I'd like to give a bit of a report on. For Railroad Days, the group met a week or so ago. Actually, 2 weeks ago, because there was an announcement at the council meeting. The Railroad Days is moving forward with a live Railroad Days event in August, with the caveat that may have to cancel the live event, but right now they're planning on making it a live event, and even more so calling on the downtown restaurants especially to ask them if they wish to participate, that we'd love to have them participate. And I suspect there would be some interest in them participating more so than they have in the past, because they need the business and we'd love to involve them. So Railroad Days is planning to move ahead. For the Art Commission is busy as heck. They have keep fulfilling their complement of members, which I think might be complete as of this meeting. They're planning the Wine Walk in September as a live event or live events. There is a mural downtown, the truck mural that you'll see across from the railroad station on that huge wall. And it was damaged recently, so they're planning on artfully repairing it. The pole banners are being updated by the seasons. The lobby art for our City Hall lobby, even though the lobby is closed, they are planning on doing refreshers for that, so that there will be lobby art at the time that the City Council or the City Hall opens up again. And finally, I'd make a comment about what we've seen in this meeting about the wearing masks, the artful work that has been done so far. And I think, Nicole, you're planning on getting input from other sources, including merchants and the like. I would hope that you would give the Art Commission an opportunity to express themselves also, and maybe they have some ideas. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Jeans. Is there anybody else who would like to report on any liaison activities at this time? Councilmember Mayhew.
Yeah, so Councilor, I don't think I've reported to you, and I've been remiss on this, and I won't take long now, but in case some of you are not fully aware, there is a group that we, the city of Snoqualmie, participate with, which is having a fantastic, just a tremendous impact on transportation issues, specifically on the SR 18 widening and the SR 18 I-90 interchange. This group is called the Southeast Area Legislative Transportation Committee, and it's composed of representatives from cities on our side of the pass, North Bend, us, Issaquah, the tribes involved. On the other side, we've got, I think, Maple Valley, Covington. It's not a complete list. And what the cities have done is come together to focus on the need to get SR 18 widened, to get barriers down the middle for safety. It's one of the most, as we all know, one of the most unsafe roads in the state. And to finish out the I-90 SR 18 interchange. The reason that you might say, well, why do they care so much about the interchange? So many, they being those on the other side of the pass, so many of their residents travel to work over SR 18. Their residents are in danger. Their residents are delayed by the lack of adequate highway. So they're very much invested all the way through to and including the interchange. And just so that you all know, the way the state, the Department of Transportation has split all that up, the interchange project actually includes widening the road all the way down to not Deep Creek, but Mayor, help me out. It's
Raging River.
Raging River. Thank you. Big Raging River Bridge. That, as you all know, is a $150 million or so project that's now increased close to $200 million in the estimate. So there's a funding shortfall. The state's allocated, they've allocated 150 full funding for the original 150 million. What the group's been pushing for several years is to bring to the legislature's attention the need for widening the rest of SR 18. The total price tag on that as of a year ago was expected to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 million. Today, that number is now more like 750 million. It would be probably the second or third largest transportation program in the entire state if that were all to be done at once. So this is an enormous ask, and that's why all these cities have come together, cities from 2 different legislative districts, and they're reaching out and doing work with legislators all over the state. Luckily for this, a lot of the legislators that come to Olympia come right across I-90 and right down SR 18 to get there, so they see it and they live it. But in any event, this is an enormous ask. This year, a big transportation package is moving through the legislature. And in the next few weeks, that's going to be coming out of committee, and it's or going through and then coming out of committee. We as a city, and I know I talked about this at the last meeting, have not, as a council rather, have not adopted a formal legislative priorities list. But each of us as council members can make an enormous difference if we contact our legislators, any legislators in the state really, because they all care about this, but especially our 5th LD, 5th Legislative District legislators, and really let them know how important this is and how much we support them and need their support to get this funding. Now's the time, if you ever were ready to make calls on something, this is a big time. It needs to get into their 6-year capital plan, into their transportation package, if we have any hope of seeing this anytime soon really get addressed. And so I will circulate to all of you the document that the CLTC group has come up with that they're using to talk with legislators about this. So that's available to you. And please let me know if you have any questions on this. I'm your representative to that group, and the mayor regularly participates as well. And we make a big contribution to that group, and we can help the voice really be heard. So just wanted to make you aware of that, and I'll send out that that flyer to you. And yeah.
I just want to comment real quick. I was, early on engaged in one of the first efforts to try and coalesce all the stakeholders around that whole corridor together. I was really pleased when some of the leadership down in the Covington Maple Valley area then formed the CLTC after my efforts on the interchange to go with the widening, and happy to jump on that effort. And as Jim said, I was very, very involved in that, put a lot of time and energy into that. But of late, that meeting often conflicts with the mayor's SVGA mayor's breakfast. And so I'm just very grateful that Jim has done the lion's share of the work on tending to that committee's work and efforts. And so thank you, Councilor Mayhew, for doing that. Councilor Jeans, did you have another comment on that, or?
Yes, actually, it's piggybacking on that entirely. What the Mayor Pro Tem and/or the mayor draft a letter so we can sign on to it, so it will be more powerful, I think, than receiving letters individually.
Yeah, the good news is that this has gotten on the transportation package last year when it didn't quite get through committee. It's on there again this year. And then just the crisis that the state's facing, it's remarkable that we're getting anything on there. But Senator Mullet and Representative Ramos, in particular on the Transportation Committee, has done a remarkable job. The news we're hearing is, although they didn't, we were hoping to get to 280,000 or 285,000 originally spec for that. When it went to 700,000, we thought, man, it's pretty grim.
Million.
Million. But now, yeah, a little more than 1,000. But the word we're getting now is they've gotten just north of $500 million into that package. So it's falling short of the 7, but it's a whole lot better than what it was looking like a little more than a month ago. So, but Councilor Jeans, I appreciate the suggestion. That's certainly something we could consider when very good. Any other liaisons want to report at this time? All right, very good. So moving on, the other discussion item we have is legislative priorities. Councilor Mayhew, you spoke to that already a little briefly. I don't know if you want to add more to that discussion item at this time.
Well, the only other thing I wanted to add is just to reiterate what I said a moment ago. Any asks that we make of the legislature, this is, the legislature, like our city, is a biennial entity. And this is the big year when they pass the biennial budget. And so now's the time to make the big asks, because this is when the appropriation happens for the biennium. They have more complex rules than we have. They actually have to look out 4 years instead of 2, but without going into details, now's the time to make our ask. The one other ask that has been made out of our city, the mayor's made it, I've made it, has to do with our parkway and the need to resurface that parkway. As you all know from our CIP discussions, that's a big, big number. $6 million at least in capital funding to resurface that parkway. And you're all, I think, well, I know you've all seen what's going on with the pavement management index, how that's deteriorating, and how that's projected deteriorating in the next few years. So we don't have much time to get that done. Some sections we got a little more time than others, but this is a very immediate need. One of the ways that we can get help is that the legislature can directly appropriate money. Now, those aren't enormous appropriations of $6 million or $60 million, but they can be very meaningful. To give you an example, I think the city of Covington this year made a specific request for a $1.5 million appropriation to help them with building with expanding a pool and community center. That sounds familiar. Anyway, down in Covington. So the ask this year in that regard that's been made to our legislators is please help us with parkway funding. If you could make a call, each of you individually, to our legislators, now is the time. Now, between now and the end of February, first week of March, now is the time to make contact. Let them know how important that is to our city and ask them, can they help us try to get some funding to help do that. So I just wanted to bring that up. Again, legislative priorities will be nice. I've been having discussions with administration as we kind of talk about the retreat, about the notion of, hey, going forward, can't we as a city have a legislative, or we as a council in coordination with administration have a legislative priorities document, something like Covington has. And I'll send that out so you can all see what that looks like. And so the idea is, over the next year, let's make that a part of our process. so that going into next year's session, state legislative session, we'll have such a document. But in the meantime, for this year, if you can make calls and ask for that, it would make such a big difference towards our ability to maybe get something like that. So I encourage you to do that. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. I have a couple hands, so Councilmember Shepherd and Councilmember Ross.
Right, we haven't, we don't have a fire truck with a ladder. And I'm wondering if we can add that to the list of asks for our legislators.
Yeah, that may be a tough one to ask, but we could certainly.
Mayor, could I just give her, would it be all right for me to respond to that, or I can wait my turn?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say, Councilmember Shepherd, I agree with that point. I think we all recognize how important that ask is. The thing for all of us is to, I think, realize how effective we can be if we kind of hit the legislative session in the way that the other cities are. And what it turns out that requests, if we're going to tee up requests, that really has to be done in the autumn and in that time period before the legislative session starts. It's almost impossible to bring something new forward after the legislative session starts. And of course, we're now 2 months into it. So I think that's, the mayor kind of said what I was thinking, which is that we're actually so late in the process this year that it would be very unlikely. And in fact, I would be fearful that bringing anything new up at this point would dilute the requests that are already there, which is all about SR 18, especially in the transportation area, which is SR 18 and the Parkway. So I think for this year, if we're to be effective, we need to just stick with those asks and just keep pushing those asks. But I for one, completely agree with your idea that as we develop next year's ask and a document and a united council ask to the legislature, I think let's look at putting that on there. I think then we can really be effective on that. So for what it's worth, that's my perspective on it.
Councilmember Ross.
So do we have a list of items, for instance, that the city's requested? 2 years ago when they were going through the budget process, we were like nixed on the list for the all-inclusive park for receiving funding, but we didn't make it, right? But we were, if something fell through on the list, then we would have been part of it. So, or pool money. I mean, why can't we request the same thing as what Covington is requesting? So do we have the wish list out there? Are there grants out there we've already requested that could be possibly funded through this year? And then it also gets back to there's all kinds of things that we'd like, but we need to know what are the things that we're going to ask for instead of throwing out a dozen.
Jim, I'll respond. Perhaps you could just add to what I say. Councilmember Ross, this is an inexact science of knowing what you could probably ask for and be successful in getting. Because the Parkway number is such a big number, $6 million of which we're asking for about 85% of that, or roughly $5 million. My determination or calculation was when Senator Mullet asked me, hey, what do you guys want to go for? Because all the partner money's collapsed, even if we got $1 million from the state, we still couldn't do that this year and certainly not next year either. So I said, look, all of our eggs have to be in one basket, and that is the Parkway. Senator Mullet, if you can really push that issue, that's what we need to 100% focus on. Because having a significant amount of money go to that would alleviate pressure on capital money. As Councilor Mayhew said, you can put that on me if you didn't feel I was pushing some of the other issues. But again, it's a calculation I've sort of learned over the years. Keeping that list pretty small and keep it very focused. They have a lot of constituencies to respond to. And the more you can keep yours easily in their mind, the more successful you can be. Councilor Mayhew, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I completely agree with that perspective. Here's the thing I would add is, so there's a whole process of applying for grants. There's grants from different agencies. And, historically, we've done a reasonably good job as a city. Some years extraordinarily well. Most years, almost all years that I'm aware of, certainly recently, we do a pretty good job of asking. And as you point out, there was that sort of, to me, heartbreaking all-inclusive park just being just below the cutoff list. Those really go through a whole process of grants and applying for grants that's really very different than what I'm talking about here today.
Yeah.
So those processes happen. They're defined processes. What would the legislature funds a grant program, then establishes criteria, and then the governor and his administration go through the process of granting those monies. This, what I'm bringing up tonight, these legislative priorities are really about something entirely different. This is where we're asking our legislators to go in and specifically add something into the budget. I mean, it could be that we say, hey, could you fund, a parks program to a higher degree, but that wouldn't necessarily mean that it's a specific ask that'll come through to us. Even if they did what we asked, those funds may go somewhere else in the state. So really, these legislative priorities are where the request is to a legislator. So each of our legislators has an ability to put in specific appropriations directly to a specific thing. They don't have a lot of ability to do that, but they have some ability each year. So they look across their district and they say, where is the highest need where I can make that ask? It really goes, direct appropriations are different than something that has to go through an application process for a grant through a whole evaluation process. This is for a specific request where they have a limited ability to do something directly. And so asking for them to put something into the transportation package and really push for it is an example of that. And that's why I brought that one up. And then the other is similar to what Covington did, and what we're trying to ask for with regard to the Parkway is to go directly and say, can you try and get money specifically for this huge need that exists within your district? So it's a little different it's completely different really from all the other grants and so forth that we ask for. And that's why it's a little different. I think historically, we as a council haven't really sort of focused on that. I think the mayor has done a great job, but I think there's a chance for us to really join in that and make our city's voice more powerful. So hopefully I answered your question.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yeah, I still feel very strongly that we need a ladder truck. And for me, that's a very high priority. It's been around ever since maybe even before the Parkway was an issue. And to me, it seems like it's just a can that keeps getting kicked down the road. And for me, I would be wanting to prioritize that before these other issues. So I'm not in favor of asking for this is our primary focus. This is our top priority, because it's not my top priority. My top priority is a ladder truck.
And I'm sorry, Councilmember Shepherd, I should have been clear when I said that it was a difficult ask. In my 20 years of experience as a councilor or mayor working with legislators, I've never heard of a city being awarded something like a component of a fleet, like a fire truck or a police vehicle or something like that. That's an unusual request. You can imagine the run that would cause or stampede down to Olympia from every municipality and city and county looking for a similar sort of assistance. So that's why I said I'm not sure the avenue with a senator or a representative that I would probably put a push in for, as I said, a specific capital line item for something like a fire truck. Chief Carrera may have experience otherwise, but it would be unusual from what I've experienced. Chief Carrera, would you concur with that, or you disagree?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It would be one thing if we had a large state facility where we were trying to provide service to that state facility, then it's possible we could engage them on that. The reason why I unmuted and I turned on my camera was I just wanted the council to know that, a better avenue for a piece of apparatus like that is the federal government through their Fire Act grant program. And we did submit a grant, just submitted about 2.5 weeks ago for that. And if you recall, the last time we submitted for it, we made it all the way to the end, but still didn't get funding. So I'm hoping that with the current fiscal situation in the city and the demands that continues to increase for it, that we'll be successful. The application was for almost $1 million. So I'll keep you posted as it evolves, but I just wanted you to know that we are making an effort to get funding through other sources besides the general fund for that.
Great, thank you, Chief. All right, I don't see any other hands up for any other liaison reports. Or I'm sorry, we were talking about legislative agenda, any other agenda items. So, well, we're going to bring up that item at staff and talk about maybe itemizing some things that the council could sign off on too. So we'll take a look at that later this week. The last item I had under community floor, at least for a mayor's report, I wanted to note was Some of you may have heard that you've heard of a firm that Rick heavily subscribes to, Happy Wife, Happy Life, or Happy Daughter, Happy Father. He has had an opportunity afforded to him where he could move to the hometown of where his wife's parents live and where his daughter's grandparents live, and work in that community. And he has decided to accept that opportunity. So we are in the position of looking for a new city administrator here soon. And I just wanted to quickly give you an update that we've identified, with Rick's assistance to this point, three good, very solid candidates to consider. I'll be talking with the staff tomorrow morning a little more about a process to queue up. With my goal, we're going to do some interviews with them, with the directors, so they have a chance to kind of weigh in and have a voice in that selection. And then I hope to have made that decision by the end of next week, or by the 5th. So at least we have about a week overlap for at least Rick can do a handoff or some conversations with that individual to make for a smooth transition. The reason why I'm treating this a little more than a typical 3 to 4 month interim period is that what makes this unusual is moving into an election period where the mayor and 4 council members are up for election into November. As you can imagine, that would make for me a problematic conventional hiring process if it was three months of an interim, or 4 months that took us into July or midsummer. We would probably lose a lot of very high caliber candidates that would otherwise apply if they said, well, gee, why would I take a position in a city where 3 months later there's an election, there's a new mayor who might toss me out the door the moment I get there. So our calculation for the greatest chance for stability and continuity is to look for an interim person that would take it through the end of the year, so that we get through the November election, and whoever is the mayor at that time, or mayor-elect, can then work as part of that hiring process, and whoever selected is the mayor-elect can then participate in that, and then have more assurance that they have a stake in that, whoever selected for that position, and move forth from that time. I know at least with 2 of the candidates, they're excited about the interim position. They're not interested in continuing beyond that, which would be kind of, again, the normal process is just to not do it. But there's one person who's at least open to that, and depending on kind of where the I'm not going to tell who to the staff, but depending on who they tag, there is that opening that if a new mayor or whoever, or at that time, or council confirming, determined that the interim person who was here for 9 months was working out fantastically and they wanted to keep him on board, there's certainly some opportunity for that as well. Any questions in that process, or any concerns? Or all right, well, thank you all. And we have 2 more council meetings with Rick, so I'll hold off additional comments. Certainly appreciate the work he's done for us up to this point, but we'll have opportunities to say our farewells and so forth, and cry and sob at the appropriate time. So, all right. Any other questions about that issue? All right, thank you, Council. With that, we'll move on to announcements. Or at this time, is there any other, I don't see any written staff reports. However, are there any questions from the staff at this time? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to announcements. The only announcement I have a note on is the special council meeting, as was mentioned by Councilmember Ross, with Andrew Ballard on this coming Wednesday, February 24th, from 6 to 8 p.m. regarding the SWOT analysis on quality of life issues, and particularly focused on the last remaining sections of our urban growth area in the Snoqualmie Hills area. With that, there being no further business coming for the council, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
A motion and a second to adjourn tonight's meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. All right, motion has it. Everybody can enjoy your rest of your evening. Thank you.
Bye.
And for the record, I was here.